So then let's get it started. The question of this talk is, where is the price going? And there's a lot of interesting questions leading up to that one question. But yeah, we all, I think we don't have a crystal ball, but I think there's like some interesting models, there's some interesting thoughts around the price. And this is, and I collect a lot of data of like what is popular in Bitcoin, where do people click on, and what everything that hints on the price is the thing that interests especially the people that are either early to Bitcoin, like the first like 6 months, or those people that are interested in Bitcoin but don't have Bitcoin, so like those pre-kerners. So I think the talk about the price is really interesting. I want to give the panel a chance to quickly introduce themselves and give them some thoughts what the price is and what the importance of the Bitcoin price is. Claire, please.
Okay. Hi, I'm Claire. I'm back again. I am a commodities trader, financial astrologer, and a diehard Bitcoiner. And the talk around price, I think, is actually the price of Bitcoin is the least interesting thing about Bitcoin. And it's still important, for sure, but it's actually not as interesting as the actual network and the infrastructure itself. And so that's really my answer to that question.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chris McLaughlin. Third time back here at this conference, so great to see it growing as well. My background's in economics and technology. I was naturally going to find my way into Bitcoin, I think, with that kind of background. I've been in this space for 9 years now. Wrote a book, Why Bitcoin, and spoke at a couple of conferences here over the years. Echo what Clara said. Like, it is important, the price is important, but I think the most important thing is that we move off the fiat system that I think has been not serving everyone in this room very well over the years, and that we move to a hard money standard like Bitcoin. So I think that's the most important thing, but the price is extremely important. And it is interesting to talk about over time, but it's very, very difficult to predict. And as Robin said, there's no crystal ball, but definitely an interesting topic.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. My name is Pablo. I work for Bull Bitcoin. I was a teacher, and then I worked in finance, and then I went back into teaching, and now I'm teaching finance. So I'm a Bitcoin evangelist, and I'm looking at all parts of education. So I do get this question a lot, especially from people who are new to Bitcoin. The price, where's the price going? What makes the price go up? What makes the price go down? How can you protect yourself from that move? And to be honest, it's somebody who focuses on Bitcoin adoption, helping people learn Bitcoin, use Bitcoin, live with Bitcoin. It was my entry point into Bitcoin as well. But as you'll see from everybody up here in the panel, once you've spent a bit of time in Bitcoin, it does become the least talked about subject amongst Bitcoiners, to be honest. And to us, it's kind of it's similar to when you have small chat with somebody at the bus stop about the weather. You know what I mean? It's like weather chat. Oh, it's nice weather today, isn't it? Yeah. So it does get to that point eventually, but all different people are at different levels. So I'm happy we can get into this subject because there's probably a lot of people out there who do have questions about the price, and I'm happy to give some time to it as well. So I thank people for putting me on this panel.
Hi, everyone. I'm Badders. I used to be a music producer and songwriter. And as such, being responsible for my future life as a self-employed individual, I became really interested in sort of ways to protect my wealth in the future. That led me to becoming an investor in Dead Distillery Japanese whiskey, which was my first touch point with absolute scarcity, and property developer, again, for the same reasons. I got completely disillusioned with my industry and metropolitan life, and so I decided to retire, and that's about 10 years ago. Since then, I've been building a autonomous citadel in the south of Europe where I have energy independent electricity, heating, spring-fed well water that supplies our house and animals. Food, I have about 3 years of food walking out in the fields, and it was when I sort of opened up my peripheral vision to all the things that I didn't have time for before that I discovered Bitcoin almost as soon as I turned my back on fiat life. I would second your opinions on the price. It's a very useful metric for adoption and these sort of things. But once you see the number go up technology built in to Bitcoin itself, you sort of just live in the confidence that price is going to continue to go up. But more important than that, my purchasing power is going to continue to go up because price is still measured in vaporware. Vaporware, that's my Danish accent. So yeah, it's interesting to sort of pontificate about, but ultimately I think it's a little bit like reading tea leaves. So yeah, anyway.
It is really interesting. I like to reframe or reperspective the price, not from, oh, how high is Bitcoin going, but how bad is the fiat system actually going? and then having that perspective change from a scoreboard of how bad the fiat system is currently doing. This is the most interesting perspective that I can see in the price talk, because then we can see, okay, when we switch from Bitcoin, from euro or like dollar or whatever the fiat currency is denominated into Bitcoin denominated, we all of a sudden see a chart that's going down. So we are denominating things in Bitcoin, and so like the price charts, the Bitcoin price could also be the euro price or the US dollar price measured in Bitcoin. And I guess that's also the scoreboard of how bad the fiat system is going. Maybe, and then when you were talking, actually, I came about that thought. What else is the price showing us? Do you have something to add to here?
Yeah, I suppose on that point that you made, when we think about price and Bitcoin going up, and like even forgetting about Bitcoin for now, prices are going up in general. Like, why is that happening? What's causing that to happen? And when you dig deep into it, you realise that inflation can be attributed by a natural phenomenon. Some people say, which is nonsense. Population growth, greedy corporations, whatever it is. There's always reasons for people saying why goods and services and assets are going up. But the underlying fundamental challenge with that and problem with prices going up constantly is because we're introducing more units into the system constantly. And that's a symptom of the fiat system that we have and we've been running for the last few decades. So, and then you kind of get into the thought of, again, flipping it on its head, our house price is going up. Using house price for an example, you could buy a house today, and in 10 years' time, fair enough, you could renovate it, you could build an extension on it, and you'd say, yeah, that's added value. But you could sit the same property there 10 years later, and it will go up in value, and sometimes it's actually gone down in quality as well, wear and tear and things like that. So if you flip it on its head and say, look, these assets aren't going up constantly, it's actually the money is getting weaker, and that's a symptom of the fiat system where money is constantly being created. And again, once you get deeper into that, you understand that there's a forced mechanism in the fiat system where money is always going to have to be printed. So assets that are valuable are always going to go up in value, or again, maybe the money is getting weaker. And then if you look at all assets across the board, real estate, bonds, stock market, collectibles, whatever it is, gold, Bitcoin sits above every one of those in terms of its property. So yeah, the money is getting weaker. It's been destroyed by the fiat system, and I'm very glad that Bitcoin is here as the new system that we should be moving towards.
One interesting aspect is also what it does when we all of a sudden switch to Bitcoin standard and everything is going down in price. So that the Bitcoin price in everything else. What do you think is the consequence of that once you get on a personal Bitcoin standard? Okay.
Well, a couple of things. I mean, just to add to what you were saying, I think it's a really useful kind of metric to look at. We just had Bitcoin Pizza Day, and the story is always focused on, oh my God, this guy spent 10,000 Bitcoin on 2 pizzas, and that 10,000 Bitcoin is worth so much, this much now. I don't know the maths this year, I haven't worked it out. But the focus is never on the flip side of that Papa John's pizza, I think last year the maths was it would cost you 10,000 sats. So over, I think, 10 years, that's depreciated 100 million times. Like, surely someone should be getting fired for that, right? That their product is depreciated that much. So I think it's always interesting to sort of flip that around. But I think from a personal level, it really realigns what you're going to spend your money on. Like when you're on a fiat standard and you're just in this cycle of like, I need more, everything costs more, I've got to get more and keep going, and you're just on that hamster wheel, you don't think so much. Whereas for me, to get me to spend any of my Bitcoin or a single Satoshi, you better be creating something of like real tangible value. And I think that's such a great thing for society, because we need things of value. Our society is full of crap, and we really need things that are of value. And I think that's really what Bitcoin brings to the table.
Yeah, I've got one out. Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to second that point as well, because Bitcoin gets a lot of heat from certain people, maybe more politically on the left, but without getting into politics. People give capitalism a bad name. But essentially making profit is good, and we can level up as a society through a free market. But people conflate capitalism with consumerism. People think capitalism is consumerism, but it's the consumerism that's essentially ruining a lot of our resources, because we're moving away from money that's losing its value into anything. It can be IKEA furniture, it can be digging up the earth for minerals, it can be buying the latest iPhone, because you're flying away from that unit that's losing its value. So actually the price of Bitcoin going up is the total opposite. You reverse your behavior of moving out of a unit of account that's losing its value into holding something that's gaining value. And as a result, you don't need 90% of the crap that's in your house. So you start living really frugally, and you start gaining other side advantages such as time. You have to work less. So it comes with a lot of advantages outside of this price going up. Just because the mechanics of Bitcoin encourage frugal spending and savoring time and essentially fighting consumerism. So I always like that point of Bitcoin with the price, yeah.
It's a really good point of once you get to the Bitcoin standard, you really live it. I'm just curious what your thoughts are, Bedos.
Well, I mean, if you could take it in many different directions. I think one of the second, third order effects of the sort of monetary debasement is that all of our lives are becoming, less in terms of quality, for example, because as a producer or whatever, you have three options if you're dealing on a fiat standard, right? It's you are basically you're either increasing your prices and keeping the product the same, or you are debasing the quality of the product to keep the price the same. Or, there's you as a consumer will suffer the consequences in one way or the other. Whereas if you are changing to a Bitcoin standard, it's kind of the inverse of that, right? You can carry on spending the same level of sats, but instead of buying polyester blend clothing, you're all of a sudden wearing cashmere, right? Or you're just living much cheaper than you were before. So I think the price of Bitcoin is not just giving us freedom in terms of owning our time and all of these sort of things, but actually the quality in every aspect of life will improve. Slight sidebar there, but.
Yeah, it's really interesting. One thing that is also an interesting conversation point around the price, because I like short-term price movements. I think we can all agree, like we have no clue, but we have a directional view on where the Bitcoin potential is, what kind of market caps Bitcoin could eventually reach once it's successful. How do you look at that, Chris?
Yeah, I think that's one of the nice times that we're in at the minute when it comes to Bitcoin adoption. We've got this new, real engineering work of art that was designed in 2008, released in 2009. It's very early adoption at the moment, and maybe to put it into perspective for your question, like of the total assets in the world at the minute, Bitcoin's sitting at 0.2%. Like that's minuscule compared to all their assets. Gold, they're related to is 10 times bigger than that, so it's 2%. So it's got lots of runway to grow. So once we get to the Bitcoin standard, I think, again, our purchasing power will still increase in relation to productivity in the world and everybody's efforts in making things cheaper. But we're in this really lucky era at the moment where 0.2% global allocation to assets is only going to increase. Like, again, to get parity to gold, it's 10 times the price that it is today. That's $1 million Bitcoin. Again, I don't know how long that's going to take, but I know the trajectory that with that adoption, with the collapse, I suppose, of the fiat system and the money printing that's going to happen, plus the adoption for things that are happening in this room and all around the world, that trajectory is going to go up. Just the time and how long it's going to take and how fast it's going to go is the question.
I'm often wondering, right, like how the fiat system is still existing. For me, it's like how this money printing can already have gone on so long. How do you say it, astrology, the monetary astrology? How do you look at that?
I don't look at the fiat system through astrology because it's pointless, it's dying, it's on its way out, you know. But yeah, I mean, I think in terms, even just talking about price, right, I come at this from 3 different perspectives. Like, number 1, I'm a Bitcoiner. There's never a bad time, in my opinion, to buy Bitcoin. Number 2, I'm an astrologer, so I do know that everything is cyclical. And number 3, I'm a trader, so I do know there are better times to buy Bitcoin, right? So from this perspective, at this point in time, we've just had new all-time highs, and we're technically in price discovery. We've had a little bit of a pullback in the last couple of days, but that's okay. So we are quite high in this cycle. Do I expect it to continue higher this cycle? Yeah, I do. But there is also that chance that we've had the top now, and we're going to come back down into a bear market. There is that possibility. But I would still recommend that people continue to buy Bitcoin and DCA in and see this as a savings mechanism. And the way that you can do that and feel good about it is that you extend your time horizon. So if you're only looking to make money on Bitcoin price this cycle, I'm sorry, it's a bit risky, and you're probably a little bit too late, right? But if you continue to DCA into Bitcoin each week, each month, whatever, and use it as a savings mechanism, and extend that time horizon out, then you're still going to be in good standing, because no one has ever lost money by holding Bitcoin for more than 5 years.
Well, I think it's just it's a matter of sort of time horizon and perspective, right? The total addressable market for Bitcoin is fucking everything. Yeah. And it's just a question of like, how long is the right-hand tail of fiat? I think we're seeing governments now sort of like co-opting Bitcoin in a way to maybe make that tail as long as possible. So who knows? Maybe actually their sort of adoption will keep fiat alive for a lot longer than we are hoping for. But ultimately, Bitcoin as global money is everything divided by 21, right? 21 million. Knud?
Yeah, and what was I going to say? So I think when people ask the question about price, behind that question, there's the fear of volatility. And that's really where, we always deal around like fear and hope. And I think the fear of volatility leads people to ask the question, so where's the price going? But to come back to the time preference thing, a really sweet place to be in Bitcoin is even when it hits its lows, you're still in profit. But that does take about the 4 to 5 years. But then after that, you become very agnostic to price. And that's why there's a few of us sat on the stage now, because we've been involved in Bitcoin for long enough that even when it dips, and some people are having a really bad month, we're having a great 5 years. So it is like a longer thing that you need to look out to. But that volatility, that fear of volatility, it's volatile up and to the right. Whereas if you want stability, you can choose fiat, because fiat will be stable down to the right. The inflation is very stably eroding your purchasing power. So if you do want that stability short term, keep in fiat and you'll have stable inflation. But if you want the up and to the right, just stretch out the time frame.
I absolutely agree, and this is why I think educating yourself is the first step, right? Because in order to become immune to market movement, you have to have conviction, and then you will see every dip as a buying opportunity. So like down days are brilliant, up days are brilliant, and your life is just all around brilliant. So I think it just has to come from conviction, because how are you going to allocate your capital, like a significant share of your capital, if you're not convicted that this is the best choice for you in your life? So this is why I've sort of tried to stop pilling quite as much as I have in the past, and maybe just try to encourage reading instead.
Yeah. One thing I always give as an anecdote when I was early into Bitcoin is I saw the price moving up in a month, and I had my rent money sat in my bank account. So I thought, hey, I can flip this really quickly. So I put my rent money when I was a student into Bitcoin, and 2 weeks went by, and I saw a minus 5%, and then a minus 7%, and a minus, I don't want to say how much, but essentially my rent money got eroded away, and I had to ask a friend to cover my rent money for that month, and I paid him back the month after. But the lesson to learn there is that on a short time preference, you don't want to overcommit, because drawing down on a loss is really not very fun. So the conviction is super important to the reason why you're getting into Bitcoin, but also to overcommit and want to draw that money out when it's not the right time is a painful process. And I'll just share that anecdote as an example.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of wanted to highlight that there's sometimes, every time's a great time to buy Bitcoin, but there are sometimes better times. So just allocating steadily is a really good way to do things, because as I've spoken on the other panels that I was on, I've spoken about this period that we're in, this really unique time in history, astrological history as well, and we're straddling two worlds at the moment, and that can be kind of like really destabilizing or unnerving. We don't know what the future holds. We don't, and we're sort of, as I said, straddling two worlds, but it's also the time of like greatest opportunity as well, and so you kind of have to be able to step into that too, and embrace that opportunity and that fear.
Yeah, and I think one of the important things is, obviously, as people understand this more, they gain more conviction, but there is probably a downside to that as well. As humans, leverage comes into play after a while, and especially in this early adoption phase, I don't expect up and to the right straight away. As we're saying, it's going to be volatile. I remember Amazon stock in the mid-2000s, 2001 to 2009, it had multiple 80, 90% drawdowns, and that's because people kind of had a feeling that the internet was going to be a big thing, but they weren't so sure about it overall and how it would plan out. And e-commerce was going to be a massive thing, but they didn't know how it was going to play out and how everything would work out. And I think we're kind of on the same path as Bitcoin. I think a lot of people understand that this could be a huge thing, but come back to the leverage piece. Once you get a lot of confidence around it, it's very easy to take out loans or take out and sometimes manage risk and things like that is everyone's own choice, but it can get carried away, and that's a lot of what's caused previous dips in the market. So I would just say be careful about that, and as Claire said, a lot of it's cyclical, a lot of human behavior is cyclical as well. We might think that this is a new paradigm and everything's going to go up forever. Bitcoin's going to get carried away, and we end the fiat, next year, but it usually takes a lot longer than that. So it's kind of tempering your expectations and looking at this over a long-term, multi-decade, multi-year period.
Yeah.
I think an interesting question is also, especially for Bitcoiners that have a substantial amount in Bitcoin, how to deal with the short-term volatility if there's something coming up with a car breaking down and dealing with to sell some Bitcoin or do a borrow against them and all those things.
Just walk.
Just walk. Just walk. Yeah, please.
Well, I think as part of the whole price thought process, whatever. I also think about how much is my time worth, and so the price the price of my time is extremely high because of Bitcoin now, and so I'm very choosy about what I spend my time on, because my main priority is spending every day with my son, teaching him how to become a free man, and making memories. And I think you can't get too lost in. Well, particularly if you're on a Bitcoin standard, you don't really have much choice other than just carry on living. But there are things that are more important to Bitcoin than Bitcoin, I'm sorry to say. It's just that they make Bitcoin more important, right? So if price goes down, don't sacrifice your family and these sort of things too much, because deferring gratification is the right way to live, I believe, but deferring need is something quite different.
And deferring living
Yeah.
is something different too.
So get more life with Bitcoin and not more life into Bitcoin, I guess.
Yeah, I think we have like finite things. We have our time, our energy, and our health. And whatever Bitcoin's doing shouldn't be impacting negatively on any of those. You can put as much time in as you want, but as long as it's positive time, you can dedicate a lot of energy to it as long as it's not impacting on your health. You know, there are things that you flip around really quickly, like you were saying there, and you just start to reevaluate what's really precious in your life because you're not having to worry about money. So then you reprioritize these things. So my time, energy, and health are way more important than my Bitcoin.
I love that we went from where's the price going to this very moment here. I think this is a very Bitcoiner talk. Maybe before
For people who don't care about price, talking about price.
2 million by Wednesday.
2 million by Wednesday.
It's official.
We are at the end of our time, but I always want to give the speakers a final message. So maybe better you can start, and then we can go around with a final message around that topic to the audience.
Well, I'll just say, obviously, keep on stacking, but don't sacrifice living either. That's certainly the point that I've come to myself. Yeah, keep on stacking. And as I was saying earlier, tongue in cheek, I really think if you hold fuck you money, it's incumbent on you to sometimes say fuck you. And I think if we really want to try to fight the system or change the system or whatever, get rid of the system, it's time we stop subordinating ourselves to it. You know, there are ways that we can circumnavigate these acts and statutes that they pretend are laws. You know, real law is natural law, universal law, right? God's law. And the first and most important right that we have is property rights, right? The right of our bodies, our minds, our souls, our children, and whatever we own. And Bitcoin is one of the very few things that we have a loyal title over. Everything else is registered or licensed, or, you know, the Child Protective Services can come and take your child away because you've signed their birth register, all of these sort of things. Bitcoin is incredibly precious because it's one of the very, very few things that we own outright. And so I think it's time that we puff our chests out and face this like face on and not cower and be governed by fear. You know, you must pay your TV license because there is a satellite truck that's going to come and track you down. No, they're governed by fear. Just look them in the eyes and hold on tight to your Bitcoin.
Yeah. I would probably conclude on, because we're getting towards the end of the day here as well, so I've been listening to the talks, talking with some amazing people, getting to know some new people as well, and there's so many great big ideas out there. There's a lot of tech information, there's a lot of speculation information, there's a lot of big ideas. But with all of that in mind, what I'd recommend as well is like have fun. You know what I mean? Like this is an amazing opportunity. It really is. And we can try and work it all out. I overthink things. Like I had analysis paralysis for a long time before getting involved with Bitcoin. I was thinking how, when, why, with who, you know, all these big questions. But just taking a small step and just really realizing that this is an amazing opportunity and we can smile. So yeah, enjoy.
Thanks. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed today. Great to see this conference growing over the years. Bitcoin adoption is growing. I think it's unstoppable at this stage. I know there's always a lot of work to be done. I think the fiat system, again, I know I keep speaking about it, but it's one of my biggest hates in the world. I think it's really having a negative effect on society. Very subtle at the start, but it's growing, and I think everyone understands that there's something wrong, with modern society, but not really pinpointing what it is. But when you really get under the hood, the fiat system is at the center of a lot of that. And I think it's important that, you know, people like us and people like yourselves, if you've learned it, maybe start talking a bit more openly about Bitcoin. I know we were kind of the weirdos in the corner for many years, and I think we probably will continue to be like that for a couple of years, but it's definitely changing. So I would encourage people to start talking about it to friends and family. I know it's not always an easy conversation, and you get a lot of pushback, but making the conversation more open. And yeah, it'll change your life, and I think it'll change everyone's life in the long term. So yeah, I'm here for the change, and yeah, looking forward to the future because of Bitcoin.
Yeah, and I just want to thank Lawrence and Dinny for putting this on. It's been a really fantastic conference, so let's give them really appreciate it. And yeah, as I've said a couple of times, we are in this gap period. We are straddling two worlds, and I know that sometimes when we sort of speak in a utopian way, like you can be sitting there going, great, that's not going to pay my mortgage next month, right? And so we need to balance out those two worlds that we live in, for sure. But I do want to be a bit of an outsider reminder. I am ethnically Irish, but you know, I know that I don't sound like that, but I want to remind you guys that you are Irish, and like, F the system is literally hardwired into your DNA. So if you're sitting on the fence with Bitcoin and you're like umming and ahhing, not sure how to get involved, or if you want to get involved, then, you know, just remember that kind of like revolutionary quality that is in your DNA and take a closer look, I think. Thank you.
Dan, thank you so much. I think those four speakers made me realize how grateful I am to be in this community. So thank you so much, and give it up for those amazing speakers.